Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So it's earnings report season, and really this is an exciting time for those of us who follow the news. And yeah, it's really where we just see the indicators of how all the companies have been doing. Well, EA's report came up first, and wow, it is really quite bad, with their stock dropping 18% in after-hours trading, actually threatening to be near their worst ever single-day stock performance of minus 25.5%, which was almost 2 decades ago. Now, of course, this was during extended session and pre-trading, so it's not when the normal sort of high volume of the market being open in the day is really something that's a factor. This is really the time where the market's dominated by the pros. It's not always the most stable trading environment. And often, though, it is something that does actually serve as a bit of guidance for when the market does open for the rest of us. Regardless, though, it is a large drop in their valuation, and it reflects a disappointment in their current performance and uncertainty over the future. Now, as for the stock, we will just have to see how the market plays out. Will it correct upwards or downwards? Where is the actual value after this initial drop? Would it be a good idea to, buy in when the markets are open and then swing trade up? Certainly, I think anyone who shorted their stock before the earnings call is going to be feeling quite good about themselves. So that's the market reaction. Suffice to say, definitely negative. But let's talk about what they actually were reacting to. So EA CEO Andrew Wilson was really quite upfront. He said it was a competitive year and that in the face of that competition, they had significant challenges and they did not perform up to their expectations, with this low performance being something that they continue to see play a factor into Q4 of fiscal year 2019. He launched into a discussion of the Battlefield 5 situation, saying that they made a number of decisions that they thought would improve the game, and basically that they decided to delay it and work on it a bit more. And he said that this delay bumped it into a more competitive sales window. And I mean, yeah, that's hard to argue against, really. Now, why did that delay happen? Well, it seemed like, just from the testing, that the game was just in an odd position, being really of quite uneven quality. Now, these development woes could have been influenced by a number of factors that I'll talk about later, but I think it's safe to say that DICE kind of bungled the whole thing up. And frankly, looking at where that game is post-release, and this is as a player of Battlefield since the first Vietnam a very long time ago, they seem to have a muddled direction for their game, as evidenced by things like even the TTK flip-flopping that they've recently shown in the live game. But anyway, Wilson went on to say that they prioritized single player over Battle Royale and that this hit their sales. And I've seen some people reject this, but I entirely disagree with them. Not having Firestorm at launch was a critical failure for this game, and the market has already shown this, with Call of Duty Black Ops 4 performing fantastically, especially with its Battle Royale mode. In a game like Battlefield, the single player is almost entirely unimportant. The gameplay, like in almost all the past Battlefield single players, sucked. The stories also pretty much sucked as well, and the added slice of revisionism regarding Operation Grouse, Freshman, and Gunner Sight, especially when they had multiple real-world stories of near absurd levels of heroism that would have accomplished their meta goals of the story. Why they chose to do that is just a little bit whack. Suffice to say, and the point is, Battlefield players do not purchase those games for the single player, and this one was a particularly weak one. They just don't. They want a core set of mechanics. They want maps. They want servers to play on. Well, first, Firestorm would have essentially been the Battlefield experience on a very large map. You've got to understand that for somebody who plays 100 hours of Battlefield, and this is literally me, 100 hours of Battlefield across 8 maps, that's like each map being 12.5 hours of content. One map is more than all the campaigns added together, and Firestorm would have been worth maybe 3 or 4 maps in terms of gameplay hours. So from the perspective of being a multiplayer shooter, yes, they shipped a bad single-player mode instead of having a more robust set of multiplayer features at launch, and they then also shipped with a historically low number of launch maps. When Wilson says their prioritization of certain features, was the problem, he absolutely is right. To a long-term Battlefield player, 5 feels like a confused mess, even going as far as things like its UI, which also feels woefully underdeveloped. And that isn't even going on to mention the ongoing lack of third-party servers or a server rental program. So yes, Battlefield 5 massively missed the mark in terms of its core feature set, even with supposed new features, like dragging down teammates to safety to revive them, not making it in. Now, hearing Wilson acknowledge this lack of core features, that probably is a good thing. It does show a bit of an understanding of why this game may have failed to hit the mark in terms of the core audience. Now, he did then go on to hype up the game as a live service, and to me, that is such a double-edged sword, because free maps And features, that sounds great, but the game only launched with 8 maps, and the rate of new maps seems to be very slow, and the rest of the live service, frankly, is quite underwhelming. So because of that, I'm very skeptical. So I'd say this, Battlefield, just prioritize core features and maps. That's literally all people want. Then later on in the Q&A section, Wilson elaborated on the competitiveness of the game's release window, how there is generally more competition for players' time than ever. I mean, that's seen by Netflix saying that Fortnite's their biggest competition, and he then talked about the poor state of their marketing campaign. And I think that's very true as well. People want an authentic feeling shooter that provides the fantasy of that era. So when you see the 1940s equivalent of Fortnite characters running around, they absolutely missed the mark. Now, loads of defenders were quick to say that Battlefield has never been realistic. Yeah, you're right, and that's also completely missing the point, because the people who want realism, they are playing Arma 3. The people who want authentic shooting and a bit of fun and action-adventure, they're in Battlefield. And there's such a big difference between authenticity and realism. They are different things. Battlefield, and I'd say especially modern Battlefield, has not really been about realism. That's not why people buy it. But their initial marketing for this game was practically an assault on authenticity. And that has been this franchise's standout, unique selling point since its inception, especially more in the modern era, where the likes of Call of Duty are getting quite a bit more futuristic. Now, this trailer was then followed up by a number of public communication blunders that I think further misunderstood the core's audience. I don't think they served to build bridges and actually be sort of nice and reasonable. And I think they stoked the fires in a way that likely felt good to the people making those communications, but I think was undoubtedly quite bad for the state of public discourse in our industry, further increasing the perceived gap between consumers and creators. So what about their actual numbers? Well, Battlefield 5 sold 7.3 million units, which was about 1 million less than their previous guidance. But there's actually a lot more to that story. There's more than meets the eye here, because it's not just that they were 1 million sales down. The revenue generated from each sale was also down because, as Wilson said, they released in a more competitive window, and therefore they had to discount the game's price to be competitive. I believe going as far as a 33% on discount on Origin. Now, 7 million sales at a 33% discount is like, what, 4.5 million at full price? So as you can see, the real story there is far worse. We then need to take into account Origin Access. How many people, just played the trial, or maybe just got 1 month of premium, tried it out, and never came back? A part of me wonders if the Origin Access premium business model is over-reliant on microtransaction engagement that may not happen with core games like this and Anthem due to their audience and what they care about. Oh, wow, so there you go. You've made it through the Battlefields section. Congratulations. What is your prize? Mobile games. Oh boy. Another contributor to their weak earnings was actually mobile revenue. Command & Conquer Rivals pretty much failed to take off, and they had some attempts to broaden the appeal of Madden Mobile that also didn't work, plus they had a game delay. All of this led to a 23% drop in mobile bookings, and you know what? That is great! If you decide that the new Dungeon Keeper and Command & Conquer should be mobile titles, you deserve what's coming to you. Once more, it is, it's a very cheap use of existing IP. It was embarrassing when they released it at E3 or, announced it, and I'm glad to see the market not reward them for it. Now, they mentioned how it is also a more crowded market and that many of the top games have been there for years, and if anything, it shows that you need to innovate a lot instead of just doing the same format of game but with a new IP. Thing is, though, for a lot of those existing games, people are in deep with a massive sunk cost fallacy, and I think breaking into that mobile market is going to be extremely hard from now on. So when we move into the future, I actually think things look a little bit up for EA. Now, Wilson did say they expect 5 to 6 million sales of Anthem. That seems kind of reasonable to me, if I'm being honest. Though with all EA games, it's kind of hard to tell how sales through Origin Access Premium are actually counted. Anyway, he was pressed in the demo, but he said they're still confident in the game. I'm a bit worried, but anyway. Past that, he said there is a new Plants vs. Zombie shooter, a new Need for Speed, there's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and another Titanfall experience. Near the end of the year. We don't think it's Titanfall 3. I don't think anyone thinks that right now. It seems very unlikely, but it does indicate they have more planned with that franchise, and I think that certainly is a good thing. And then, of course, we also have Apex. That came out very recently, seems to have launched to near universally positive reviews. Personally, I've loved my time with the game. I was particularly impressed at just how designed it is. In a way, it feels like a ground-up battle royale with its unique vision, rather than something that was thrown together with existing mechanics because of a trendy thing. It really does feel like Respawn's own stamp on that genre, and if you're interested in hearing more, then you can check out my video, and I also have a video breaking down its business model, which is on the channel as well. And then, of course, we also do have FIFA. That did continue to do well in the past year. Sales of 2019 were reportedly quite weak early on, but they seem to be kind of strong now. That probably is just down to Ultimate Team performing well, but of course, Ultimate Team does face the risk of regulation in areas, well, especially like Belgium, as we've covered earlier on the channel. So overall, in the short term, EA, they got clobbered. They have been a fixture in the news cycle for months now, and it's almost all been for bad reasons. We have seen this impact their bottom line, I think. I really do think that. Battlefield 5's underperformance, that is something that most of the broad audience could have told you would have happened, for a lot of time, right? We've kind of been latched onto that near since the announcement. On the whole, I would hope that EA would learn from this and learn from their mistakes, but it's EA. I mean, they've not shown themselves to be the most agile company in the past. Now, on that topic, Wilson kind of spoke to that. He talked about a desire to be more creative with how they market, release, and develop games, and even talked about internal restructuring to allow those things to happen better. Will it bear fruit? It might, but it is kind of impossible to tell. It is just words at this stage. So overall, I'd say that I'm not massively confident in EA as an organization. I think that Anthem does actually risk underperforming because of its endgame worries, but I do also think that its free content model will make it a more salvageable game than Destiny 2, because for Destiny 2, if you wanted to get back into it, you would have needed to have purchased Forsaken and the Season Pass, and that's quite a lot of money. Then, of course, Apex is great, and Respawn are a great team, so I'm pretty sure the Jedi will be quite good. I actually suspect that there'll be quite a few bright points in the next fiscal year, but there could be a weak patch, because I don't think they have a Battlefield or a Battlefront. They don't have a major shooter title to round off Q3, and that could lead to a bit of a dip in their performance. So there you go. It's definitely rocky for EA. As much as I'd love to sit here and say, oh, Andrew Wilson said these things, I think they've learned. At the end of the day, yeah, he said those things. Will anything happen? We need to wait and see. Ultimately, with these guys, I don't really think you can take their word for much. You just have to wait and see what they actually do. So that's what I recommend doing. Anyway, let me know what you think about EA and their portfolio, especially Battlefield 5. I've not really talked about it much. I have actually enjoyed parts of that game quite a bit, but I just didn't find that it had the sticking power because of the low number of maps and just a few other issues with it, I suppose. So yeah, let me know. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.